First timers, raise your hand. Yay! Thank you so much. Vets, who's been here 2 times? Who's been here 3 times? I'm not going all the way to 25, trust. Okay. I think we can get started with just an introduction of what this panel's all about. I'm Jared. I'm from Nourish, California. I'm a big fan of the CalFresh program. I think anybody does resonate with anybody here. But we're not here to, we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about program and policy and data. But we want to make sure that we're talking about the reason we're talking about that, which is people. And so we've got an excellent panel to take us through all of that. So I'm going to pass the mic first to Greer to just do a quick introduction, and then we'll go into more of the content to just talk about why you're here, and then we'll go to Marchon real quick, and then Catlin, who's joining us all the way from DC on a very busy day for the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities with the Farm Bill Marchon happening. So I want to thank him as well. But Greer, just want to give us a quick intro.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Greer. I use CalFresh. I'm also part of the San Francisco Marin Food Bank Food Pack program, which we're just kicking off to help with advocacy with people who also utilize the food bank programs.
Yes, my name is Marchon Tatmon. I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Advocacy at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank. And I'm going to pass the mic to my friend.
Go ahead, Catlin.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I'm Nchako. I'm a research analyst with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. We're based out of DC. We're a policy organization that's focused on protecting federal programs for low-income families, and I do data analysis, and I work on a team that works on SNAP and WIC. And at the moment, I'm representing my team. They're all pretty busy with the Farm Bill hearing here, so I have to do my best to channel it as well. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks again, Catlin, and say hi to the team. We value all the work you do so much. You support us so much in our state and federal advocacy. So thanks to everybody there. And we'll be talking about the Farm Bill, not today. So, like I said, I just handed people a report, and this is a data session. And we're here to talk about policies and procedures at the county level that can help more people connect with CalFresh. And we've got a CalFresh participation problem, as people here probably know, and if you don't, it's incredible. But we want to start with, again, why it matters. And so I want to give the mic to Greer to talk about your experiences with CalFresh, and, the good, the bad, and the other. And so here you go.
Thank you. So just really quickly, I'm a single mom of a special needs child, and I am also a student, and I work I go to College of Marin, and I work, they have a small organic farm that they run. I work there part-time, and I also, as I mentioned, have been volunteering with the Food Pack. I have been on CalFresh since 2018. I have had a mostly good experience, but I have had some big problems. Most notably earlier this year, the eligibility worker that I had mistook that my employment was an actual job, not work study through the college, which is supposed to be federally exempt, and basically cut both my cash aid and my CalFresh to almost nothing. And it took a lot of advocacy and arguing from me, and almost 3 months of time, at which time I wasn't getting any aid or almost any aid aid or food stamps to be able to get that back. And it was very hard for our family. Luckily, I was able to make it work with help from the food bank and from the College of Marin, but it was very hard. So that was one thing that I encountered that was very hard, and it was partly because I found out later that the eligibility worker that I had basically quit out of nowhere, and nobody told me. And I have had that problem multiple times where I've had eligibility workers just leave or change without anyone telling me, and I'll just get a letter for reciprocation or something else come through the county, and it'll just be a new worker on the paper, and there's no notification. And while I realize that the workers have a huge caseload, it's really jarring every time to have to re-explain your story and your background and every trauma that you've gone through to a new person every single time. And for then that paperwork to oftentimes fall through the cracks because of those worker changes, it's been really hard. And I think a lot of people don't even pursue, if paperwork falls through the cracks, they don't bother to pursue it because they don't have the time, they have to leave work, they don't have access to the internet to follow up, they don't have the ability to leave work to spend the time, they don't have the ability to have the child care to be able to spend the time on the phone with their workers. And at least in Marin, until very recently, you had to go into the county office to be able to speak to your workers or to be able to speak to the main office. And it was to be able to actually get anyone to pay attention to you. There is a phone line and you can go online, but it was impossible to get anybody to get back to you without calling and calling and calling and calling and calling and calling and calling. So the only effective way was to go in. And if you don't have a car, there wasn't good public transportation to get there, because Marin does not have very good public transportation. And, you know, if you don't have a car or somebody to drop you off, or if you're in a wheelchair or don't have good, if you have mobility issues or anything else, or you don't have childcare, or you have to miss work to go and stand in line for an indeterminate amount of time, it's a really big barrier to be able to get the services that you need. I've also had issues where workers, again, have changed, and then you'll submit paperwork to one worker, or you think to one worker, and then that email will bounce back because that worker isn't there anymore. And you say, oh, well, I've submitted this paperwork, all of my recertification is good, I've submitted it. And then that paperwork bounces back. It says, oh, this person doesn't work there. And then you'll submit it to the, main, like the general email, and they'll say, oh, well, we'll get it to somebody. And I've found now who the supervisors are, because I've gone into depth now dealing with this over and over again. But again, if you only get a little bit of CalFresh, it might not be worth it to you to spend that amount of time. So for me it is, because I'm a student, so I get a higher amount of money. So for my family, it's worth it. But if you only get $50 a month, it might not be worth it to spend your time doing it. So that's in my experience.
It's a federal entitlement program. You look at that table, California, and I'm going to turn to Catlin in just a second to talk about some of the data that shows that Greer's story is not uncommon. Look at those states. Oregon, 100%. They're our neighbors. Those are the same people. New York, they do the county thing too, county administered. They've got one big county, like LA, right? Kind of a good analog. 82%. National average, 77%. You can see where we are in the charts that Catlin's going to talk about. Florida, they don't even have the positive policies that we have. We want people to get on CalFresh. And if we were as good as the state that doesn't want to be good, we would get $713 million in food assistance. That's outrageous. We're all sending emails asking for a million here and a million there. And when we just found out about the CalFresh minimum benefit cut, that's $15 million. Oregon, 2.66 million people, 3.46 billion. Okay, you get where I'm going with this. Catlin, if I can turn it to you to talk about some of the data that shows that, again, Greer's story is not at all unique or uncommon. Some of the trends to tell us how, and then we'll get into some things that Marchon's seen and what we're going to do about it. So, thanks, Catlin.
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I can only see the audience here, so I'm just relying on voice to hear you, Jared. There's sort of three charts that you may have that I want to sort of go through. So one is showing SNAP participation in California and just the number of SNAP participants, so in an average month in the fiscal year, and that's over time. And essentially what that is showing is that you sort of see that the CalFresh enrollment has grown over the past decades and sort of peaked just around 2015 or so. Then it started to decline again for the next 4 years or so until it hit this level. And then you see it start to rise again and sort of really rise very quickly. And actually from what I can, the data here shows is that there are about, at this point, about 5 million people who receive CalFresh in the average month in 2023. That's actually the highest number of CalFresh participants from the data that we've seen. And our data goes back to 1980, so that's a very high number of CalFresh participants. California has the largest share of the U.S. caseload of SNAP participants. California has a larger share, about 12%. They also receive the largest share of SNAP benefits. If you look at the national, how much is going out nationally. Then the next chart is just showing the share of eligible people in California, and that's looking back at over time that receive SNAP benefits. And then that trend, what you can see there is it kind of mirrors the national trend, and that's partly because California is such a big state that it can really drive the national trend. And what you see there is that the rate has been going up for a decade, sort of generally speaking. And then it hits, and then around 2019 it sort of levels off. And it's just around 72%, hits its peak in 72% in 2019. And it stays flat for the next 2 years, and it's sort of just dropped in 2020 is the last year, which is data for that. And so that's pre-pandemic in 2020, so before March of 2020. So it's closed down to 66%. So what's interesting about this is that, so if you overlay sort of the increase in SNAP enrollment, and then the share of people who are receiving CalFresh benefits, if the number of CalFresh benefits is going up, but then your share is sort of staying level, it also means that the number of people, which is your denominator, the number of people who are eligible for CalFresh, is actually rising very quickly. It's even rising even faster than the number of CalFresh enrollees. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to bring up, and I'd be happy to love to hear more about some of the on-the-ground reasons why. And then the last chart I want to show here is also just showing SNAP participation rates for eligible individuals, and that's by state again since 2020, and sort of where California falls within that. And then so here we have a chart that shows categorizes for the states which one have 88% of SNAP participants that are would have SNAP participation rates of at least 88%. Those are between 81 and 87%. Those are between 78 and 80%. And those are below 73%. You can see that there, California there is is in the bottom group here in terms of states. And California, actually, that's not common. California tends to be among the bottom states in terms of participation rates. I think for 2020, there were either 5 states that had lower SNAP participation rates than California. It was at 46 one. So I just want to present those charts just so that gives you some context to what we're seeing nationally. And I'd be very happy to hear more about some of the reasons behind it as well.
Thanks, Catlin. That's depressing, right, guys? I mean, what are we doing? Yeah. Well, we can take questions throughout if you want to be conversational. So yeah, go ahead.
I moved a year ago from Alameda
I think we can hear you.
to San Benito County. And at the time, I said to Alameda County, please transfer my benefits to San Benito County. I went into San Benito County when they cut off my benefits, and they said, well, we don't have access to Alameda County.
Yep.
So you have to start all over again.
Yep. Inter-county transfer is a huge problem for us, Catlin. We would love to learn from other county-administered states who are doing a better job on that. In terms of things that are happening on the ground, I mean, definitely heard from the expert. But Marchon, you work really closely with the San Francisco and Marin County social service departments and human services departments. And I know historically those two counties have ranked pretty low among the counties. And are people aware of the wide disparity among the counties? San Bernardino enrolls like 95%. And you just go over this imaginary line on I-10 to LA, and all of a sudden, your chances of getting connected to a federal entitlement that gives you the most basic need there is go down about 20%. There's something happening at the county level. So that's why, Marchon, can you say a little bit or tell us the story of your partnerships with San Francisco County and some of the challenges, but also, I know there has been some success in San Francisco, particularly related to enrolling newly eligible SSI recipients, but anyway, I'll stop and hand you the mic.
Thank you. And yes, historically, San Francisco and Marin County has been the lower bunch of the 58 counties around California when it comes to participation rates. One of the reasons why, and this is, looking at it at the state level, is political will. Getting the right policy in place to make accessibility easy for as most people as possible. Still looking at the state level, we're looking at silos, departments not working together. And then when you focus on the county level, you're looking at some of the stuff that affect the people. Greer said it. Applications or paperwork not being processed. Long processing times. Errors when it comes to paperwork being processed. Counties being severely understaffed. Marin County is one of those counties where every month we're asking HSA as they hire, because when you don't have enough staff, you create a caseload for yourself, and it starts to get backlogged. And if you don't have staff to process the applications and everything like that, now you're working behind the 8 ball when it comes to processing times. So all these create issues, and has been creating issues for both counties that San Francisco Marin Food Bank represent. And also, the county doing a better job to work with people who's in the field doing the work, so they don't have to do extra work. Jared mentioned something about some of the success San Francisco had, and that was with the SSI expansion. I met with our CalFresh team a few times because San Francisco had an unbelievable enrollment rate. I think around 91% or something like that.
You guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, unbelievable rate when it came to enrolling folks on SSI. And I asked how and why, because I was taking these questions every day because it was unbelievable. they told me that the county did an amazing job with working with some of the partners who was already in the community. And not only that, investing in the partners in the community, and also investing in the right material so people can understand what was about to happen. And that was really the basis of some of the success when it came to the CalFresh expansion to SSI.
Yeah, political will. I want to spend a little time on that. We don't have any statewide goals. When I wasn't doing this kind of work when the Affordable Care Act rolled out and Covered California rolled out. But speaking of knocking it out of the park, California enrolled more people, a higher share of people than any other state. So we can do this, right? It was because it was a priority. This is federal money too. And so, Marchon, I know your organization is sponsoring some state legislation this year maybe I should try to describe it. Can you describe it? Because I think it's in line with some of those goals around setting goals.
It is, and as you can see with any goals being set, you need a person to actually carry out that goal that's being set. So one of the things that the San Francisco Marin Food Bank is supporting and actually a co-sponsor of on the state level right now is AB 1967, which will create a cabinet level leader to address food security throughout California. For some folks, they like another person, another salary, something else to try to address food insecurity. But when you look at anything you're trying to address, you need an accountable leader at the top to actually bring in the results that you see. And that's what this is intended to do. Work with departments across the state, work with our federal partners, work with our local level partners, our CBOs, everybody that's connected with the anti-poverty, anti-hunger movement to try to figure out a way to move the needle. And in particular, move that needle towards bettering the participation rates in California, which I think California ranked 6th nationally, nationally for participation rates with an average participation rate at around 66%. In California, and I think the national average is around 78% or something like that. So this will be one of the responsibilities of this role is trying to increase that participation rate because we are missing so many federal dollars. As Jared mentioned, with Oregon and some of the other states that has 100% participation rate in CalFresh, I think California's lag behind the 10 states that has 100% participation rate in CalFresh. We're missing around $3.6 billion in federal funding that we can use, our local economies can use. The economic multiplier effect, which generate more money just based off some of the money that's being brought into the county. So California is missing a lot of opportunities, and the goal of this position is to make sure we don't miss those opportunities and that we have an accountable leader at the top that'll get the results that we desire in California.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
So I live in a community. I work at a community college down in Santa Maria, the northernmost town in Santa Barbara County. And I think something we also need to think about with California participation overall would be communities of sacrifice like mine, where the primary population is millennials or Gen X that are first-time immigrants, maybe undocumented. And there is that that fear, because under certain administrations, if they were to apply for food stamps, it would disqualify them from citizenship and residency later on. Right now it doesn't, but that doesn't necessarily mean that can't change. And so I think part of that, like, you're eligible, why don't you apply? There's that fear of future status being denied. So not only is that our undocumented population, but there's that language barrier. 70% of my town is Latino, and most of them are primary Spanish speakers. And there's that accessibility, but there's also that pride of, if I can't support my family, I don't deserve to support my family. So I think there's a lot of things going on there that we also need to look into. Is California having any outreach programs to those specific populations, and having that really serious talk with someone like me who's Latino, who would be from that community, who can explain that to them? Or are there more people like me who can help those people? And I just want to know if the state's actually having any initiatives going specifically to those populations.
I mean, that's a great point. You know, I don't know if you were in our food for all panel, but we're working on getting state-funded nutrition benefits to everyone. It is a huge issue, and you know, obviously the previous federal administration set us back. You know, we've done a lot of work, and trusted messengers are key for, and language access is a huge issue in California. And trusted messengers for different populations, older adults, trust different sources than other people do. But I would also say there's a lot of immigrants and non-English speakers in New Mexico. Catlin, you got that in front of you? It's 100%.
Yeah, I would add, yeah, states like, for example, New York, that has also a lot of immigrants. They're at 82% participation rate. They're not a Western state, but they're also counted in the state. So it's another example of a state that has, can think of other states have similarities to California, where there's something that they're doing.
Yeah.
So that can help with enrollment.
Yeah,
So there's obviously a precedent for it.
exactly. So the point is, we can do it. We just need to do it. And Marchon's strategy that he's leading is to set not standards but goals and create a system of accountability. I think I saw another question.
Yeah. I'm looking at a chart on page 3, and as an older adult, I represent the California Alliance for Retired Americans, and one of the things we learned is that the disabled community has a lot of the same goals we have.
Yep.
I don't see disabled people listed on this chart.
Yeah, that's
And they have independent living centers all over California that reach out to CalFresh, but I'm not sure CalFresh reaches out to them.
We're going to work with Catlin and his team and our partners at CDSS to include that kind of data in our next report. Thanks, Judy. I do want to go to Greer and say, Greer, all right, let's fast forward. It's October. Marchon's been successful, and his alliance has been successful, and Governor Newsom has signed the bill. We printed it up for Marchon. We framed it for his office wall. And now, it's the first work group meeting. And we hired the new title, like, don't know what the title's going to be, but food security officer, right? Greer, what would you tell the food security officer?
Oh, put me on the spot.
Fix CalFresh. No. What would you share? What would you come back to?
I would just tell them that it's an incredibly important program and that so many people benefit from it, but that so many more people could still benefit from it. And that while I've had a lot of problems, that it has been a lifesaver, quite literally, for myself and for my daughter, and that I would have been So I don't want other people to be in that same position. So anyway,
Thanks.
so.
You might have just signed yourself up to give some testimony in the Senate.
I'm a crier, what can I say? I get emotional.
Well, it's understandable.
Do I have a chance to say something to him?
I think you do.
First, I would say let's get to business. Let's look at the states that's doing it right and learn from their success and see what we're not doing so right. The states I have in mind is the 10 states that has 100% participation rate. Is it a centralized approach would give us this success? I don't think so. You said some counties have it where it's 100%, right?
Well, maybe not
Give or take.
but it's pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah, so just examining those reasons. And then looking at the other 52 states that's ahead of us. And then seeing what they're doing different so much from us. Is it a understaffing issue? Is it a barrier with red tape issue? Is it lack of administrative funding issue to cover some of the costs for some of the stuff we don't see on the front end but take place on the back end? And then go from there. And then craft a plan based off those initial results. And then work with the community groups to see exactly what the community needs to move the needle forward. Some of the things I have a conversation with him about, him or her.
Thanks, Marchon. Catlin, to put you on the spot, I mean, I know data's your expertise, but do you have any insights about policies, procedures, different ways that those really successful states are approaching SNAP, CalFresh, that California could learn from? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think some of what has been mentioned already, I can think, for example, of outreach, improving outreach, identifying folks who are hardest to reach out to in your county and targeting outreach. So in terms of data, nationally, households of older adults and household immigrants are the lowest participation rates of any household group, so that would be an example of a target group a target group. Things like providing assistance in different languages, taking account cultural differences to reach more people. Stigma is another issue. Working to mitigate fear of applying for benefits. And also just making it less burdensome for people to apply, simplifying the SNAP application process. There are organizations such as Quote in America that have been working in California, I think it was, to do that. Improving verification documents so that people can recertify, it's easier for people to recertify for benefits. So those are some things that come to mind in terms of procedures that counties and cities can employ.
Alex?
Yeah, I'll just yell. Does Oregon has an automatic enrollment, right? Is that why they're at 100%?
Not like, I don't know exactly what you mean by automatic enrollment.
Like if you're eligible, you are automatically able to receive without the application?
No, they don't have that. No, it's
So then-
you have to have an opt-out. That's a federal requirement, and so you have to submit an application.
Okay, so have we looked at like the costs of something like similar to Oregon? Like...
Well, interestingly, you bring up costs.
Oh, thank you.
The other flip side here is not only are we among the worst states in terms of the outcomes, when it comes to the inputs,
Yeah.
we pay more in administrative costs, or the feds do, and we do than any other state. So we're paying the most to get almost the least. So, and a lot of the policies that simplify things result in administrative savings. I think of the Elderly Simplified Application Project, where we got rid of the semi-annual report requirement for those households with older adults and people with disabilities. That's saving, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million every year that we were paying out. Nobody has to do anything. So it's those kind of solutions that we think can be particularly impactful. But then it comes down to implementation and where the rubber meets the road, and we've got a lot of work to do on that level as well. Mark. Mark knows a little bit about that.
Two things. I think there's probably a potential to learn some of the strengths that we have in California, but also we need to understand where we have gaps, specific gaps. Is it young people with small children in coastal areas, things like that? And I think right now we're hitting a period where we actually have the opportunity to really do that, because now that we have CalSouth, we got a single consolidated system statewide. And also, there's a researcher out of Harvard, Raj Chetty, who's gotten a massive amount of IRS data over the years. So there's potential now to really marry sort of our enrollment data with an understanding of detailed information about who's potentially eligible to figure out, okay, where are we weak? Is it geographically, age-wise, family composition, immigration, whatever, to figure out those areas. I think that would really be valuable, so that we're not just sort of casting a broad net, so that we're much more focused, much more cost effective. And the other thing is that, and I know this is something that everyone's eyes glaze over, is county operations, because Marlon mentioned about the staffing shortfalls. And having worked in the county, when you have staffing shortfall, when you get applications or when you've got recertifications, the fastest way to dispose of it is if they make any mistake, you're discontinued. That's the easiest and fastest thing to do. That's what we lose cases. Now the state would say its perspective is that that's a county operation. We don't get involved with that. County staff, to be perfectly blunt and honest with you, are very nervous about change, no matter how difficult and terrible the status quo is.
Yep.
But I would advocate that the state has to take a more active role in helping counties to improve their operations. It doesn't have to be forcing them to do things, but it can be creating tools that counties can use to help improve their operations. And it's, again, counties can always opt out of doing it. That's their choice. As I said, the state staff wants, well, they can opt out of doing X, but if they want to look stupid, that's their choice. And I think that's the attitude the state has to have. They want to see operations improve, therefore enrollment improve, customer service improve, because again, so those remaining eligibility staff aren't overwhelmed with work.
Thanks, Mark. If people don't know, Mark led a project to redesign the application and to start stuff. Yeah, I can see Amy's like, yeah.
Which will come out when?
That's what Mark and I were discussing over lunch.
2027?
I would say that I've been asking CDSS that question for a couple of years now.
Okay, because we finished that.
We're putting together a coalition, Amy.
Sorry.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
They have not been able to explain to me why in the last couple of years.
How do you respond to folks whose criticism of some of your data presentation is related to percentages of population rather than the raw data that shows that California is serving millions more people than many other states are? And so our infrastructures are already being taxed because we're already serving so many more people than other states are. I'd love to.
Yeah, I would also say we're not serving millions more people than other states are. And again, our administrative costs are through the roof, so something needs fixing. Question?
Just a quick comment. I think in proposing all this, or addressing it, is the effect on the local economy. We have to keep that in mind. And, when we talk about the lack of participation, it's also a lack of money getting generated to merchants, out in the community. And again, it used to be for every $1, $1.79. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, Catlin can speak to that. It's a little squishy, I think, in terms of the economic multiplier. Can you maybe just give a high-level overview of what the concept is there, Catlin, and if there's a multiplier that the center uses with more confidence than another, if it's worth sharing?
Yeah, typically when we've seen studies, there's a most recent study I think that came up a couple of years ago that looks at for every $1 of SNAP benefit that generates anywhere from between $1.50 to $1.80 in economic activity. So I think that's the most basic, and that's specifically during a recessionary period. So, and that's during a weak economy. So if you have a strong economy, then the effect would be greater. So that's the most recent data that we found. I think the study was from 2017, I believe.
Yeah, and that's because people don't keep their CalFresh in the bank, right? They spend it within 2 weeks usually. Yeah, Didi?
One of the things that I enjoyed when I had to reapply is that I could do it online. You need to reach out to libraries because a lot of people have no access to computers but through the library.
Yep. This is great. Other ideas on, I want to say on page 6, we've got some ideas that we've worked on and we've heard from impacted individuals and community members.
Oh, go ahead, yeah. I was just going to say, I actually had just a quick conversation yesterday with one of the, as I mentioned, I'm a student at College of Marin, and I was speaking with one of the administrators yesterday in one of the programs that I'm in, and they were saying that up until the pandemic started, they had an actual CalFresh representative on campus, I don't know, every day, but often, and who worked specifically to enroll students who were eligible. And then that stopped because of the pandemic, and they only just recently had a new person come on staff. And so I think you mentioned that you work for a college also, so I think that that's also another avenue. I don't know if every community college or university has a specific person.
Community of experts. Yeah, and then
So, like I was saying, I do work for a community college, and we have what we call a basic needs program, and it's not specifically a CalFresh worker, but we have at least 4 or 5 people who are trained in how to complete a CalFresh application, and who can assist people in applying for CalFresh, as well as for CalWorks and other government programs. So we have a couple of dedicated staff members at our college that assist students with those kind of government assistant needs within our basic needs program, as well as getting them access to the food bank that distributes on our campus every Thursday.
Yeah, I'll just add really quick, sorry. And there was a law passed a couple of years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, that the California Association of Food Banks led, that now requires every county welfare department, human services department, to have one dedicated liaison on staff solely for college student interaction and assistance. There was a bill this year, AB 2510, that was kind of right-sized that, because obviously all 58 counties are not the same size and don't have the same number of institutions of higher ed. But unfortunately that was held a couple weeks ago in that committee. So I'll get an update from the California Association of Food Banks on their next steps there. Hey, Margarita.
Hi. Yeah, I just have a comment. I work for the county, and on behalf of all eligibility workers, I apologize for the issues that you had. But like it was mentioned earlier, I think all counties are facing understaffing issues. On top of that, we're in our infancy of implementing CalSAWS, so that's brand new. In our county, we've only been CalSAWS for a year, and we're still having issues, so there's still some things that need to be worked out. As far as ICTs, we're hoping that gets better, now that we do have that one system, and we could communicate to all counties statewide that way to, have a seamless process.
So ICTs is inter-county transfer.
Sorry, you know, county
We're in
transfers.
an acronym world, we know.
Yeah, and then along with Jared, I remember when we implemented, I was the lead for our county for the SSI expansion for individuals that are on SSI. And we worked very closely with our local Social Security Administration. We even provided training for their staff so that they could, you know, go ahead and engage all their elderly disabled individuals to get CalFresh. And one of the biggest issues that happened there was that the minimum allotment. The elderly disabled did not feel that it was beneficial for them to complete this paperwork and then only get, at that time, I think it was only $18 or $19. So I was really bummed to hear that the minimum allotment pilot was cut. I mean, I think that that would have really benefited our elderly and disabled population. So although we had those concerns from that population, there was also some that were very grateful. They felt like, hey, $18, $19 is something that I can work with. You know, buying the, you know, the eggs, the veggies or the milk that they needed. But on the policy side, I'm always advocating for students. I think that the rules for the students are ridiculous. Having had 2 of my children attend college, and I didn't realize the high number of homeless students in college campuses until I visited my daughter one time at where she attended school, and she was telling me, you know, it just happened that she joined a little group, and one of the group members was she worked for the food banks, and she found out that I worked for CalFresh and by my daughter, and she wanted me to go over and sort of have a little chat with her about the CalFresh program and student eligibility rules. So I think those rules are, I don't know, I don't know how they came up with those rules, but anyhow. But I'm also advocating as far as, you know, even though the budget seems bleak, you know, it's really bad right now, our county always asking for legislative proposals for the future. And one of them is, you know, that we are proposing hopefully sometime soon, is that our shelter expense. You know, we have that minimum shelter expense, and it's $671. Who can rent something for $671? I mean, it's ridiculous. So we're looking at that. Another proposal that we're looking at is maybe expanding the restaurant meals program to all households and not just the elderly and disabled, but not entirely. For example, we don't want all our families to go to McDonald's every day if they're part of the restaurant meals program and feed their kids that, but maybe a percentage can go to the already cooked meals or the hot meals for the families. But again, on behalf of all eligibility, because I was an eligibility worker, I loved it. I loved helping my community and providing the benefits that they're entitled to. You know, apologize for that, but hopefully it'll get better. You know, counties, I think, are being very proactive in trying to retain staff and trying to recruit more staff. And by the way, CDSS does meet with our counties and provide tools for them to try to assist our communities. So, I mean, they're in the loop of how our staffing issues are going on.
We appreciate you, Margarita, we promise. Thanks for being here.
I'm like, she was saying,
Yeah,
I don't
I
want
know, that we're all
I don't want to get the steam fire.
I just want to, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I have had like mostly good experiences.
And I hear that.
What I said, we had a Zoom meeting, Jared and I and a few other people the other day, and what I had said was, I have had so many different interesting and different experiences because I have a welfare to work person and eligibility people, and I've had so many different, like, I've had really good experiences with both and really bad experiences with both. And so I've had better experiences with the welfare to work people, in all honesty, because I've been able to develop better relationships with them because they haven't been changed as often. But I've also had good relationships with some of the eligibility people. But, you know, and I understand that everyone has a massive caseload,
Yeah.
and, you know, but,
I think that a lot of counties went task-based, and I think, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, I feel that that has created an issue, you know, because when I was an eligibility worker, and granted, I only did the ongoing portion for a short time, but I felt like I built that relationship with my caseload, and they were able to call me and say, hey, Margarita, what's happening, you know, what? And sometimes they would just want to chat about their case or what have you, but I think that that really has taken away from the personal relationship with their customers. And, you know, I liked doing the intake portion of it because you got to meet so many other households, but I think that the task base really has taken away from, you know, staff being able to communicate better with those, with the caseload.
yeah, I'm sure.
Any questions right now? Because I want, Margarita, you brought up some of the legislative ideas that are percolating up to make the program work
Well,
better.
that's from our county.
Yeah, from your county.
From our
And I think in hearing that, some of those seem like they could be federal solutions, like
Yes.
a college student.
Waivers.
Right? We're working around the edges at the state level, but the problem is this totally ridiculous, harsh rule.
Yeah.
So if I can turn to Catlin and put you on the spot again, you know, Farm Bill is happening right now. Can you share what's at stake for California in the Farm Bill, and how can we, as advocates and community members and people who care, help support a Farm Bill, you know, that has a strong nutrition title and works for people who need help putting food on the table?
Sure, thanks, Jared. So the Farm Bill, as Jared said, the markup is happening actually right at this moment. The House Agriculture has put out this proposal, which you're marking up right now. And just to give you a sense of some of the provisions, the biggest provision that we think is harmful, that it actually wants to make the Thrifty Food Plan budget neutral. So that, and so essentially what they want to do is they want to, so the Thrifty Food Plan was revised in 2021, and so what they're doing is that they were adjusting SNAP benefits so that it accounts for current nutrition standards, current consumption, food consumption patterns, and nutrition standards as well. And so that's what increases SNAP benefits for 2021. And so that means that the benefits are higher. And what the House Bill wants to do is to do away with that, which goes back to where we were prior to the TFP revision. And that's about, it's about a $30 billion cut over a 10-year period. And so this would be, we think this would be really harmful because it basically freezes SNAP recipients' purchasing power. And while the Thrifty Food Plan would still be updated for inflation, which it was before the revision, there would be no longer any periodic updates, which I think the 2018 Farm Bill had, when the TFP revision happened in 2021, it hadn't been updated since the last time it had been updated was in 2006. So it's been a very long time. So a revision was due, and I think the House Farm was trying to do away with that. Another provision is that there's another provision in the Farm Bill is that they are also proposing that agencies would freeze SNAP EBT cards for households that only purchase foods, food and benefits that are outside of the state that they live in. So you can imagine this could be a problem for recipients whose closest grocery stores are just right across the state border. Another provision is they want to change the rules for agencies in terms of SNAP benefit overpayments, and that would likely increase the pressure on agencies. They would eliminate all the margins of error, so the state agencies would have very little error in terms of mistakes they make in terms of benefit payments. That would put a lot more pressure on them, and would also raise the error rates, which states get penalized for if the error rates are too high. And then, so those are some of the, that's just to give you a couple of examples of some of the bad things. There are a couple of things that are nice about it, but again, they don't look away the bad thing. So the farm proposal also modestly raises the earned income deduction from 20% to 22%. So for working households, they will modestly raise SNAP benefits. The farm bill proposals also getting rid of the lifetime ban for SNAP recipients with a previous conviction. So formerly incarcerated individuals will be eligible for SNAP 30 days after their release. And it also extends the elderly simplified application project so that continues on as a state policy option. So let's just give you a couple of examples, some of the provisions that are there. In terms of, we don't know what the markup is happening right now. We're not sure what the outcome of it will be yet. It's expected that the bill will pass out of this agricultural committee, and then Congress is going to go into recess, and then the Senate is in June will propose a farm bill framework, the farm bill framework. So I think what's important about this particular bill right now is to be able to highlight by making the thrifty food plan cost neutral, you are freezing the SNAP benefits purchasing power. I think also by freezing EBT costs for households that are making out-of-state purchases, that makes it difficult for folks who maybe their closest grocery store is right across the border. And then also for county agencies, eliminating margin of error makes it really hard for them to, it creates a disincentive for them to provide benefits to recipients. So that's what I would say, and I think the biggest message is really to tell your legislators to prevent provisions that are harmful to SNAP. So those are some of the things that come up when I think about the Farm Bill and California.
Thanks, Catlin. And I know, I know that we at Nourish California and California Association of Food Banks will continue to put out calls to action to stop the city's tracks. Probably is what we're looking to do. Margarita?
I just had heard about maybe also the NCE being eliminated, which would, I'm not sure if it's true.
Are they coming after CatL again? Catlin?
Can you repeat that again?
Sorry, are they coming after categorical eligibility again?
NCE, which would
I have not heard that.
Okay.
I mean, we're still going through the bill and seeing, but I have not heard that specifically, not about categorical eligibility.
Okay, thanks. We just have a few more minutes left. Any other questions or reflections or thoughts to share before I turn it back to Marchon to give us all a call to action around the legislation? All right, well, people.
Actually, I'm just struggling with this 100%. Just to me, the idea of 100% seems so hard to reach.
10 states.
Right. So how do we? How does that data? How valid is 100%? I guess I'm kind of struggling with that idea.
Well, this data is pulled from our friends at Mathematica, who are a very well-respected research institution. As far as the methodology for the true participation rate, there are a few different methodologies to measure participation. Some are simpler but a little less accurate. This is based on the most complicated one that Mathematica does, that when I have asked them for it, they basically say, it's this crazy algorithm that we, you know what I mean? So I can't answer. I don't know, Catlin, if you have any insights on how Mathematica, or how you would characterize the reliability of the Mathematica participation rates.
Yeah, I think they're very complicated statistics behind it. I think when I think of the 100%, I think that's very close to, I think at least 90%. So it's a very high participation rate. So I definitely understand the concern around saying is exactly every single person is on SNAP, but I think the fact that they have 100% means that it's a very high participation rate.
Yeah, and we're happy to share the underlying report from Mathematica, and you'll see there are confidence intervals for all of them. So, in California, I think we said 66%. It's, somewhere between 63 and 70, but they pick that average. But yeah, we'll follow up and make sure that that's uploaded. That's called the Reaching Those in Need annual report from our friends at Mathematica. Any other thoughts or reflections? We'll have a little more time.
You know, I got a follow-up question. This is for county people. You know, so with the CalFresh expansion, so you train community partners. I think you trained some of your peers at Social Security. Did I get that right?
Yes, when we were expanding eligibility to SSI recipients, because previously, prior to 2019, they were not eligible to receive CalFresh benefits. So yes, I personally went out and trained SSA, Social Security Administration staff to, they wouldn't complete the application because they were actually using CalFresh, and it's just basically navigating the online portal so that it would go directly into our system. And it still does today with CalSalsa as well. So yes, they knew the basic eligibility requirements. But remember, under categorical eligibility, if they're eligible for SSI, they've already met the requirement for citizenship or non-citizen status, for resources, income, so that helped out a little bit.
Right. So the overall signups was not necessarily what you guys would have hoped, but would you say that the outreach percentage or the amount of people that were made aware that they could qualify now, would you say that was a highly positive outcome?
It was a positive outcome. They were extremely happy, and then they got their EBT card with only the $18 in it. They're like, wait, I went through all this paperwork and navigated this online system that, you know, they were not too savvy on, and, you know, I only got $18. But again, you know, that was a small amount of individuals that felt that way. For the most part, most of our elderly disabled were grateful to at least get that amount of benefits.
And maybe they will sign up in the future.
So what we also told them is that, you know, it's not a use it or lose it.
Right.
You could go ahead and save it. So what they shared is like, you know what, I'll save it all the way till Thanksgiving, you know, for like 6 months or whatever, and I'll be able to buy a turkey or a side dish or whatever, you know, whatever. So they liked that idea that we were able to let them know, you don't have to use it right now. As long as you use it, you know, before, well, now it's 279 days. They lowered the so it will go dormant. It used to be a year, but now it's 9 months. So, you know, as long as they're using it at least once before it goes dormant, then they're fine.
All right, Marchon, 1 minute. How can people who want to support AB 1967 do that?
So I'm not sure if it's off the floor yet on the Assembly side, but once we get it off the floor on the Assembly side and set it to the Senate side, please contact your senators and share with them the importance of AB 1967 so we can get the support on the Senate side, so we can get it in the budget package on both sides, so we can get the governor's signature. I'm afraid if we don't get it in the budget package, and we all know how Newsom works, if anything got a expected hit, he want to see it in the budget. If you don't get it in the budget and your bill have an expected cost, it might get vetoed.
So get those letters in, see Marchon. Thanks everyone. If you have other questions about the report or ideas about what we might include in a future version of this report or other reports, please find me or Michelle or anybody. And thanks everybody. It's really, I learned a lot. Thank you, Catlin, so much. Say hey to the team there. We really appreciate you taking time out on an extremely busy day for you and your team. Thanks. And most of all, I want to thank Greer for making the trail. This was a drove a long way, and now it has to jump in the car and get back right away. So let's give it.